Okay, hello everyone and welcome. My name is Shelby Kinnaird and I'm the National Program Lead for Diabetes Sisters. I'm thrilled to be hosting today's webinar, Beyond the Blood Test, Qvin's Menstrual Pad for Seamless A1C Tracking. For those who aren't familiar with Diabetes Sisters, we are dedicated to empowering women living with diabetes to lead healthier, more fulfilled lives through education, peer support, and advocacy. Today, we'll be exploring a new technology that's revolutionizing diabetes care. Qvin's Menstrual Pad, the first non-invasive A1C monitoring solution designed specifically for women. This session will provide insights into the science behind the product, the benefits it offers, and how it's paving the way for transformative advancements in women's healthcare. We'll start by hearing from Dr. Sarah Nasseri, the founder of Qvin and the inventor of the Q-Pad. Then a few incredible women will share their personal experiences using this innovative technology. Afterward, we'll open up the floor to your questions during a live Q&A session. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and all attendees will receive an on-demand link via email after the event. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to submit them in the Q&A box at any time. We'll address as many as possible at the end of the session. Note our chat is disabled, so be sure to only use the Q&A. Resources mentioned today will be available for download in the resources section of our website. We have a handout there about the Q-Pad that you'll definitely want to get. Now let's meet our first speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sarah Nasseri, founder of Qvin and the visionary behind this groundbreaking technology. Dr. Nasseri has dedicated her career to pioneering women's health solutions, and today she'll share the story and the science behind the Q-Pad. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarah Nasseri.
Thank you so much, Shelby. Thank you for having us and for enabling us to have this conversation about how we can make it easier and more convenient for women who are living with diabetes to monitor the A1C and managing their condition. So yes, as Shelby mentioned, my name is Sarah. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Qvin. We are a women's health company, and we've built the world's first diagnostic menstrual pad. We call it the Q-Pad, and our initial goal with the Q-Pad is to make it easier for women who are living with diabetes to manage their hemoglobin A1C and make it more accessible. So very excited to share that the Q-Pad actually got FDA clearance a little bit earlier this year, which was a massive milestone for our team who are working really hard to make this happen every day, but also for women's health as a whole. You know, half of the world bleeds every month. Why not use that? Why not make it sort of an advantage in many ways and enable that women can get insights about what's going on in their bodies. And before we talk about the wonderful panelists that we have today, I'm going to share a quick demo of the Q-Pad so that you all have an idea about what this is about and how it works. So let me just quickly share my screen here and we'll sort of get an idea about it. So I hope everyone's seeing my screen. This is sort of the Q-Pad comes with a mobile app that you download. That's how you register the Q-Pad. This is what the Q-Pad looks like. So it's like a normal menstrual pad. You use it like a normal menstrual pad. Once you've saturated it, you pull out this little strip that you place in a little container that is then put in a pre-stamped envelope. You mail that. It goes to a clinical laboratory where the analysis happens. And about a week later, you receive your results on a mobile phone. So you can sort of very easily track your hemoglobin A1C, how it's changing over time with some tips on how sort of next steps. It's also very easy to share the results with your clinician. So there's a button on the app that you share, and it actually spits out a laboratory report that looks very similar to what clinicians are used to seeing. So that's the concept of the Q-Pad. But today we got four incredible women who are living with diabetes that are here to share their story. And we're going to kick it off with you, Zara. So if you would share just a little bit about kind of when you got diagnosed, what type of diabetes you have, and how it's impacted your day-to-day life, then we would love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I found out that I had pre-diabetes earlier, I think around January or maybe it was December of this year, so fairly recently. And it was through just a routine kind of blood testing with my PCP. So it was quite a surprise to me. And I've been trying to kind of maintain my sugar levels and learn more about how to deal with that. And so that's kind of what brought me to discover the QPAD.
Thank you so much for sharing. Hannah?
Yes, so I was actually diagnosed coming up on 20 years, so in 2005, and childhood diabetes, so type 1 diabetes, juvenile. And I obviously, my mom actually saw something that was going on with me. I'd lost 30 pounds within 3 months of going to the doctor. Also was exhausted, urinating a good bit, and I also was eating a lot, but wasn't gaining much weight. And she was like, "What's going on with you? There's something wrong." And through the years of having type 1, realizing I had type 1 at age 10 and now 30, I've never been able to test my A1C with something that is so, one, accessible, and also two, made for women. So that's why I love Qvin so much, just because it is so accessible, and I don't have to go to the doctor and get my A1C tested. I don't have to go to a lab and get the blood drawn either. So it takes so much stress out of it as well.
Thank you for sharing. Artie?
Hi, everyone. I was diagnosed in 2021, after having a family history of numerous people with diabetes. So after, I was diagnosed, I did the standard diet, exercise, taking the medication that I was prescribed. And I have seen quite a decrease in my A1C levels, but I still have a ways to go to hit my own personal goals. And so, what I appreciate about the QPAD is that it does offer the flexibility necessary for me to track my own health. And I'm also able to use it in between the quarterly recommendations that my physicians have recommended, since they have only ordered blood tests every few months. So this really gives me the flexibility to kind of manage health on my own terms as well.
Fantastic. Thank you, Artie. And Krista?
Hi, diabetes sisters. Uh, Also a PCOS sister and a Hashimoto sister as well. So
Full
I got the full spectrum of it.
package.
Yes, I was diagnosed with type 2 in 2010. It was the typical not feeling well, feeling very tired after meals. Went in, found out I was pre-diabetic. It was definitely due to my lifestyle. I love pizza and all kinds of carby, like very warming foods.
Oh yeah, we're right there with you.
Right. So after finding out I had Hashimoto's, I had to keep a really close eye on blood work and things like that. And so that was actually in 2004. So 2010 is when I was diagnosed with type 2. And then it's like, okay, great. Now what do I do? So I went to a functional medicine doctor who definitely does not take insurance. And back then I was able to afford to do so. So she came up with a very awesome diet plan for me. Of course, low carb, no sugar, no fun, right? So I definitely wanted to keep an eye on, what was going on, but I couldn't. I had to call a doctor and say, "Hey, can I get a test?" Or, and it was so daunting to have to pick up the phone, or sometimes they say you have to come in for an appointment in order for me to order labs. And I hate needles. I think all of us do. So I was like, this is awful that I have to rely on the doctor to come up with these plans for me, and I want to take it into my own hands. So fast forward to 2019, like I'm doing really good on my low carb. I lost tons of weight and everything. I could go into that, but we don't have time. But you know I needed to still be able to keep track of what was going on, because I do have my cheat days. I want to see what happens if I have a birthday cake on my birthday or enjoy the holidays. I want to be able to track that on my own, right? So having been a tester for Qvin for 2 years, I got to see the behind the scenes and everything like that. I even went to the headquarters. So
Yes.
I got to see all the great things that were going on there. And I just thought this product was something that allows me to really be able to take my health into my own hands. And when, I told the doctor, hey, I already know what my A1C is. And he's like, how? prove, prove it to me. So, I sent him over the results. And of course, he says, well, I need you to come in and still do it at the lab. So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Fine. So I went in and the test results matched exactly. So I was like, see, I told you. So
Amazing.
he was very impressed, but he definitely still wants me to come in for my blood test. But anytime that I need to know personally what my A1C is, we have Qvin. We can do it anytime. And I love being able to know what's going on in my body anytime, any place, and take it into my own hands. So I am actually, my A1C went from a 9 to a 6.1. I'm
So
still working on it.
amazing.
I'm still working on it. So thank you. And I wouldn't have really known my journey if it wasn't for the Qvin pad. So thank you so much. I can't wait to see what else is next.
Oh yeah, we're just getting started on the journey of really of what's possible with the Cupid and really the power of menstrual blood, right? So I think you're right that the very first thing, we've been at it for 10 years, and one of the first things that we had to investigate and show is scientifically was that menstrual blood is blood, right? So like the surprise of, well, it matches in some ways, it really that wasn't clear 10 years ago. And I think we've come far on kind of showing what the correlation is. Of course, menstrual blood is blood, and that a lot of biomarkers actually correlate really, really well. So thank you all for sharing you guys' stories. It's interesting, we have sort of a representation here of pre-diabetes, type 1, type 2, living with it for decades, and just recently this becoming part of you guys' lives. So I think we have a really broad spectrum of perspectives here, which is really, really great. So I want to jump on to talk a little bit about kind of how you sort of how often you're tested for A1C, in what ways you are monitoring your A1C, and how this influences your management, and also whether you think it would be helpful or not to be able to test A1C more regularly. So again, we'll kick it off with you, Zara, if you mind sharing a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I guess since I'm kind of like one of the people who had discovered it more recently in terms of, in terms of testing, I've been trying to get an A1C test every 2 to 3 months. Similar to Krista, I ran into some issues with doing it that frequently from my PCP just because of scheduling reasons, and maybe they didn't think it was appropriate to be tested at that time. So I have really appreciated the freedom to kind of just take it into my own hands, test it, at home. I actually, before I discovered Q pads, I was trying to do, I guess, get my own labs ordered, which you can do online sometimes, and take those, that paperwork that I generated myself to, a LabCorp or wherever is closest to me, which ended up being like, a 30-minute drive there, a 30-minute drive back, kind of waiting for the paperwork to come through. So even that wasn't as convenient as, I want it to be. So I think the Q-pad has really helped, obviously, as a menstruating woman, I have that opportunity once a month to have a needle-free amount of blood that's available to be tested, right? So when I saw the Q-pad, I think I just stumbled upon it on Amazon actually when I was looking for home tests for A1C testing. I just thought, wow, what a genius idea. It's super uninvasive, and I can do it at home, put it in my mailbox. There's no driving back and forth to a lab or looking for paperwork to come in. So that's kind of what I've been using now as even more frequently testing, even though I know that A1C is a lagging metric, and it is an average of the past few months. So I'm not seeing as much of an uptick between them, but I am seeing like 0.01 changes when I'm doing it from month to month as well. So it's, you know, it's super affordable also compared to lab testing. So those are a few things that I like about it in terms of just being able to more frequently test now that I have access to it.
Amazing. And Zara, just wondering, sort of for you, that insight regularly, we hear from a lot of women that, and this is, whether it's like preventative or it's I'm managing a condition, the opportunity to know what's going on in our bodies is something I feel like we often hear women actually desire. And that there are these barriers that allows us to understand what's going on in our bodies that is making it very hard. But I'm wondering, sort of from your perspective, the insight that you can get more regularly, how do you think that actually helps you in managing the prediabetes?
Yeah, I think I'm someone that has a little bit of health anxiety maybe, and I am always curious on a daily basis. It's very, you know, kind of in the back of my mind every time I reach for any kind of meal. It's like, okay, what can I eat today that isn't going to spike my blood sugar, and so on. And having pre-diabetes is also not a diagnosis that opens a lot of doors into insurance covered things like CGMs. So there's sort of more limited tools I feel like that I have compared to someone that has diabetes type 2. So sorry, what was the question?
Just, and I think you actually you touched on, and kind of how why is it helpful to have it, access to something that you can do on your own regularly, and
Right.
how insight helps you in sort of knowing what's going on.
Yeah, so I just like it kind of calms me down to know, okay, I'm still on track and you know what I ate this month hasn't, you know,
Yeah.
spiked my blood sugar. And so it gives me that peace of mind.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And bringing up the insurance piece is also really relevant, right? Because it's interesting how like the tools that you actually need as somebody living with prediabetes to prevent it from progressing are not available, and it's almost like we're waiting for it to get worse before we're giving you access. It's just a very backwards way, I think. When we think about true health, and not, why are we waiting? It's really now that we need the tools to prevent. So yeah, thank you for sharing. All right, we'll move on. Hannah, again, just want to hear a little about kind of how you are being tested, in what ways monitoring A1C, influences your management of diabetes
Sure.
as well. Yeah.
Sure. Very similar to Zara. So they actually want to test me every three. Sorry, let me start over. I go to the endocrinologist every 3 to 4 months. So that's when I get my A1C tested. So for me personally, my husband and I are family planning, and we're ready to take that next step. Now, with that being said, when you have type 1 diabetes, even before you're thinking about conceiving, you want to make sure that your A1C levels are in a very tight range. So obviously you don't want it to go too high, too low. You want it to be very consistent. And there's a specific number that endocrinologists like you to be in between before even trying to conceive. So, with that being said, I need to make sure that I am staying in the ranges that I need to once a month, in my personal opinion. So, with Qvin, it's much easier. And I also live in Atlanta. So, the traffic is crazy. It's just so much easier for me to test with Qvin than it would be to go to a lab to test once a month. And it's also very affordable. So those are my two big things, is that I'm like, well, if I'm able to test with Qvin instead of going to the lab, that's time, that's money saved, and also anxiety as well. I have a bit of white coat syndrome. I always have, even though I've had this for 20 years. I still do. I still
You're
get
not alone.
so
Yeah.
I think that those are truly what I believe make this so accessible for people. And it gives me the ease of mind too. Before I even go into my appointment, I have an idea, or really, to tell you the truth, what it is, before I even go to the doctor, and it's some sort of surprise. It's not a surprise. So that takes the ease and the nerves out of going to the doctor for me.
Yeah, I think that's another really good point that we've heard from a number of women, the anxiety that comes with these visits of, well, did you manage your A1C, and did you this and that? And it's nice that you kind of had that information. You're coming and you know exactly what's going on, right? Yeah, thank you so much, Hannah. And Artie, a little bit about your kind of monitoring A1C, how it helps you manage diabetes as well.
Yeah, I think for me, the benefit is in large part exactly what Hannah just said, is that it really gives you that flexibility where you don't have to take time out of your work schedule or, make an appointment, go in, sit through traffic, all of that. And so it makes it much easier to actually get your results versus having to go into uh, a medical office and get a lab test done. I also think for me personally, what usually ends up happening, because I can only go every 3 months based on what my lab order date is. Usually the 3 month mark comes. Well, this is what's happened in the past. The 3 month mark comes. I think about making an appointment. I get busy, for like a week or two because like some work commitment comes up or I'm out of town or something. And then before you know it, I'm getting tested every 4 or 5 months, just because life happens, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, I think what's great about the QPAD is that, if you're lucky, you menstruate at a regular time every month. So it kind of forces you to be on schedule just because that is when you can actually complete the test. You can't really complete it without having a menstrual cycle. So,
Yeah.
and so just having that built-in regularity helps keep me on track, and then having to not have to take time out of my life to go do a test that I can just do at ease from my home, is also really beneficial. I think what is great about having results in a more timely fashion is that obviously, if you test your blood every day or if you wear a continuous glucose monitor, you can see the impact to your blood sugar in the moment. You eat this happens to your blood sugar, you make adjustments the next day to get it back down. But what's great about having more timely A1C results is that you can make those long-term changes where maybe I need to switch this out for good, or maybe I need to, incorporate more of a walk after meals or something like that. And so I think that combination of both short-term and long-term actions is really helpful in managing your health as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much. And Krista.
Yes. So everybody that wears a glucose monitor probably knows how much they cost. They're extremely expensive. It's almost like more than a car payment, I would say. Month. So why is it so expensive to know what's going on in our body? I have no idea. But if I buy, like let's say 6 of these monitors, I get like really weird about like using them. I like hold on to them, for like I know holiday. So I'm gonna wear it, every day, until after the holidays are done. So, if I decide to take a break from using the monitors because, I want to save my money, like literally have to save money to buy these things. And I could just use the QPAD and see like what's going on, I'll save money that way. And I just feel like, yes, I'm obsessed with knowing what my blood glucose is every moment of the day, but it comes at a large cost. So having that QPAD available, and it's very inexpensive, I can just do that for a month and not use the monitors, and just to see like how I did.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I actually think it's an important point that you bring up, right? As we innovate in healthcare and we are trying to come up with solutions that help patients, it doesn't actually help if they're not affordable, right? Innovation that is skyrocket expensive is not actually going to be helpful for patients. It's not going to be accessible, and therefore it won't be really making an impact. And I think that's one of the things that we've talked a lot about internally at Qvin, that as we bring out the QPAD solution, it has to be affordable, it has to be accessible, and the price point we've chosen actually is the average copay that patients will have to pay if they were to go into the clinic or see go see the doctor. And that's it's very much priced because we're trying to match that and want the desire of, well, if we are going to actually make a difference here and make the impact that we hope something like the QPAD can bring, it has to be priced at the right level, right? So I think that's a really, really, I'm glad you brought that up. All right, moving a little bit on to, we've talked a little bit about kind of technology in diabetes management. You've all, in various ways, kind of had the opportunity to use the QPAD. Want to hear a little bit about kind of how you think the experience was, what the process was, and how you think, you mentioned a little bit about kind of why you think it's helpful, but maybe what is like the top sort of attribute of the QPAD that makes this really, really a good addition to how you manage your diabetes. And we'll start again with you, Zara.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it already, but just the convenience of having something you can do at home that's affordable, that can get, delivered quickly by, Amazon or wherever you order it online, and then you just put it in your mailboxes close to your house. So I think just the fact that it's, so easy to access is really my number one, thing that I love about it. So
Yeah, awesome. And then Hannah?
Very similar. I would say the accessibility of it. Just
Yeah.
because, I mean, obviously, as we've all heard from everybody, it's not fun going to the doctor. It's not fun driving. It's not fun taking the time out of your day away from work, away from your family, whatever it might be. It's not the best. So the fact that you can order this online, do it from home, and then send it out in your mailbox or whatever mailbox is closest to you makes it so much easier. And gives you more time in your life of things that you would like to do instead of waiting in a waiting room. That's just me personally.
Absolutely.
But
Guess what? We have other things to do, right?
yes, absolutely.
Totally.
And the peace of mind too, just knowing that you can do this once a month. You don't have to wait for that 3 to 4 month mark to go to the doctor.
Yeah. So the empowering of like, it's in your control. You can do it yourself on your own terms, Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. Artie?
I think for me, the draw is really that it doesn't add an additional task to my life. It actually takes away tasks, and these are things you're doing anyway, right? Like the hardest thing is just remembering to put the right pad on, which is not that hard.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think anything that can kind of fit seamlessly into your routine, and also provide you a benefit, is a win in my book.
Awesome. Absolutely. And Krista?
Well, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, I will have to admit it. When I go to that lab and I see people sitting there coughing, I'm like, I'm just here to get my A1C, you guys. Like,
Absolutely.
I get scared and I don't want to get exposed. I'm a caregiver for my mother. She cannot get sick. I cannot get sick. So I do not like going into that place, period. Especially when people are getting lab tests done for COVID and things like that in the same room as me. So I love being able to just do it in my bathroom and not expose myself to germs.
That's a great point as well. Interestingly enough, in particular during COVID, it was actually, we did see compliance, decrease as we all became aware that actually going into the clinic has risks too. And so I think in particular, this period of time brought exactly what you're talking about to the forefront of many people's minds that, there is risk going in. What can we do that takes away that risk that can be done at your home where, that isn't a thing. So really, really real life stories you guys are sharing here. It's really, really awesome. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of how managing A1C it really has affected other areas of your health. You mentioned Hannah preparing for pregnancy or reducing health risk, other health risk, and maybe even preventing prediabetes. So I want to hear a little bit about kind of how that's helpful in healthcare in general for you guys. Starting with you, Zara, again.
Yeah, I think that so for me, it came as a little bit of a surprise that I had pre-diabetes. I had thought that I'm, pretty active. I like to run whatever. I thought that I was eating a healthy diet, obviously learned later that there's, carbs and they're hidden in everything. And so I think that the A1C is just something that is tangible that, there's so much research and information that's out there on how you can manage things, but really the most concrete method we have right now of tracking progress with prediabetes is the A1C marker. So it's, it's the one thing I can kind of look to see how whether I'm on track, that the different things that I'm experimenting with are working or not. So yeah, I think that's kind of my experience of it so far.
And Zara, wasn't it you who just finished your a marathon as well?
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say, very damn active, very impressive.
Yeah, and the treadmill. So I had, yeah, just finished a half marathon. I thought that that would also help with my A1C. It actually didn't help at all, it seems like. So still
Come on.
trying, different things to kind of try to bring it down. So yeah.
But that's what's so interesting is when you do have insights about what's going on in your body that way, you get surprised. Like this is working for me, this is not working for me, and what works may actually be very different. So it's so interesting that you didn't see that it actually helped your A1C despite you being very active running a
Mhm.
marathon. It's surprising, but really good to know, right? That there are
Yeah.
other things that actually might be more helpful in keeping A1C in check and preventing progression of diabetes here.
Yeah, and something I wanted to add that I didn't mention previously is also that I do have a home test, finger prick kit to be able to test that after meals. But I've been having trouble motivating myself to basically stab myself with a needle multiple times a day. So I think
Yeah.
the A1C, especially with the keypad, it's just a lot easier to kind of keep track and less invasive. So yeah, I'm just a wimp when it comes to doing that.
Oh no, I'm such a wimp with you. I've also done quite a few of the home test finger prick, and it hurts. It takes like you're sitting there, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and you really have to build some courage. So no, I actually 100% agree with you on that. It's not I think that uncommon to feel that way at all. Thank you so much, Zara and Hannah. A little bit about kind of how it's affected other areas of your health to be able to kind of manage and have that kind of insight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not even just before, trying to conceive and have a child, but also too, it is for me and has been for about to be 20 years. It is my only way to know the average of my blood sugar. And they also are kind of diving more into TIR, time and range, with my CGM, but again, the A1C has always been the number that they look at. So for me, it just takes out, like I've said before, I'm repeating myself, but the anxiety of feeling like, oh my gosh, what is it? Like I feel judged, or I wonder what it's going to be. And it just gives me a sigh of relief or two that I don't have to just rely on that one test, because it's that one test every 3 months, that has my palms sweating. And that's super important to me, because of course I feel like everybody does, we want our health to be great, and that's something that we all strive for. So the fact that you do have control of that, and can take it into your own hands, and it just gives me, like I said, a sigh of relief to know that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Hannah. And Artie, how A1C has helped you manage other areas of your health as well?
Yeah, and so, I think having the A1C result is, again, a great indicator of what you need to do to be healthy, right? And for me personally, I find motivation in knowing, oh, I'm on track, or like, my number's moving in the right direction. And so having that timely visibility to results actually helps keep me healthier, because if I'm able to see the progression, I feel better about, oh, okay, I'm going to change this about my diet. I'm going to incorporate these additional workouts, and it just helps keep me engaged, basically, versus if you didn't have these results, you might think, well, I don't even know, is this even working? Like, why don't I just eat this pizza? Like, is it really going to make a big impact to my health, or is it not, right? And so I think that just being able to use it as inspiration to kind of keep myself healthier, using the other factors that we all know we can adjust to stay healthy is really beneficial. I also think that just having more timely A1C results in a family that is full of diabetics, I mean, it really is just something in my genetics that leads me to have a large host of type 2 diabetics in my family. We literally have conversations about, what's your A1C? Mine's gone down, half a point. Like, how about you? It's actually a conversation topic that we have at family events. And so even having those results to share with my family kind of makes it more fun in a weird way.
Totally.
Um,
Totally. Yeah, and it's like it's empowering that there's something that you can, this is very concrete
yeah.
measure of what's going on, and you can sort of start tracking that and talk about it. I love that you guys
Exactly.
are doing that. That's
Yeah,
very
exactly. It's very strange. I mean, I still remember there was, a family gathering and like five of us were just like, oh, what's your medication? Like, when do you take it? Right? Like, what
yeah.
meals work for you? It's probably very similar to this group and how the organization works and just sharing things that help you manage your diabetes and stay healthy. So I think, having those results just helps me engage in that way. That provides that motivation for me as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Artie. And
Mhm.
Krista, tell us a little bit about, you mentioned there's quite a few health things that you are kind of managing. Tell us more about kind of how A1C is helping you in general with keeping your health in check.
Well, yes, there's a laundry list of things I have,
Yeah.
and I do not take any medication. So,
Congrats. I mean, it's so impressive. I obviously know a little bit about kind of your journey and kind of how you've managed, how you've taken things in control. I'm just widely impressed with how you do things.
I'm not a unicorn. I swear it's hard work. But
Oh yeah.
so there was a time when I started losing hearing in my ear, and I went to an ear doctor, and he pulled out a piece of fungus, like a mushroom, out of my ear. And he said, "This is caused by high blood sugar." And I said, "Okay, I can grow mushrooms in my ear." It actually punctured my.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, this is a wake-up call. Like, I have a vegetable garden happening in my head right now. I had the right environment for it, right? I also had a leg lesion that almost caused me to lose part of my leg.
Wow.
I have had many life-threatening things happen due to high blood sugar. And I've taken medications, and I've had life-threatening things happen with the medications. So I have to be 100% on it, 100% all day, every day on it, or else something's going to happen. And if I believe that the blood sugar actually, if it's high, it exacerbates my other conditions. I have skin conditions that become horrible if my blood sugar's high. I believe I had cancer this year, so that's another thing. And partially my thyroid was removed a couple months ago. So if I'm not watching my blood sugar, which I think is like the worst part of this whole thing, if it's high, then I think all the other things are affected, then I'm putting myself in danger. I hate to scare people, but that's just what's happening with me. Like, I'll be in danger if I see my A1C go up, and I start to kind of get worried that, how are my other ailments doing? Like, now I have to go back to the lab and see how, and get an ultrasound or something like that. So after you've had cancer, it's like it's on. Like, I have to 100% watch everything that goes in my mouth, and I have to exercise every day, no excuses. It's like it's a constant battle, but I try to make it fun. I know that sounds weird, but I try. It's
No,
all
I mean, I think that's a good way to do it, right? It's, to kind of keep it light, even though it is absolutely, it's our health, right?
right.
It's serious, and you said not to scare anybody, but it is, it is scary in some ways. And so how do we make it actionable? That's the other thing, right? How do we make it actionable so we feel like we can do something, so that it doesn't feel completely like, oh, it's just out of my hands. So I think all that makes sense. And I know that you probably also monitored thyroid hormone, and we've actually heard from quite a lot of women that that would be very helpful, and it's something that we've validated on the QPAD as well. We know we can monitor it, thyroid hormone, TSH. So kind of wondering, is that something that you do regularly? How would that kind of be helpful as well?
That would be life changing, because most of the doctors I've seen, they only test TSH, and that's what they go by. They don't go by your symptoms. They don't go by like reverse T3, T4. They got to look at all the T's, right?
Yeah.
And so I would like to be able to get a whole thyroid panel done at my own convenience and say, hey, look, I have the whole picture now. And usually, you know, I would take those results to like a functional medicine doctor who understands what all the T's mean and what supplements or whatever they suggest to do for me to do. So I like having the bigger picture, not just one piece of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so we're coming towards the end of our panel. So I have one more question I wanted to ask you all, and it's about kind of the features of the QPAD that you really find the most beneficial, and also really wanted to hear what you would like to see improved, or added tools that would be helpful, in how the QPAD could better support the diabetes management. We've interviewed, I mean, at this point, we've tested more than 1,000 women. We've interviewed a lot of women, and we are always wanting to hear, what can be better? How do we actually make this even more helpful? So curious to hear, what is the feature that is most beneficial with the QPAD, perhaps with the app, and what would be, a feature that you would really love to see that could make it even better, as we kind of wrap up here. So we'll start with you, Zara, once again.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think I was really drawn to the QPAD because of the technology of using menstrual pads. I think that's genius and just such a no-brainer because as women, there's always this opportunity that we haven't really harnessed in the past. And I just, if I could do my annual blood test using a QPAD, I would love that. So I'm all for any other tests that you guys come up with, I will be the first to sign up. But I think the app itself is really useful too. There's an ability to kind of track your markers over time, which I think is pretty convenient to get to, and it shows, the trends. And I think that like something that I've been doing a lot currently is trying to educate myself as much as possible on what are the factors that influence diabetes and blood glucose, and how can I get in control of it in some way for myself. And, there's so much competing information out there in terms of nutrition and exercise. And, obviously genetics plays a factor in it too. And so I think it would be maybe interesting to look into how to monitor those lifestyle aspects in the app as well to kind of marry the marker with whatever you did that month or the past few months. That
Yeah.
might be interesting to look at as well.
Mhm.
I will say that the one thing that I noticed that's a little bit different with the QPAD and lab tests is just the timing of getting the lab results back. It can take a few weeks to get those back. And I think right now during the holidays, my last test did take a little bit longer than expected to get back just because of mail, right? But, obviously I'm going to keep using it because it's still so convenient and so affordable. So that's one area that, there may be some improvement in as well. But other than that, I think I love the product and, I'll continue to use it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Zara, for sharing the feedback. And I think you're absolutely right that, it's step one is being able to, being aware and being able to have the insight. Step two is then, okay, what is causing it to go up and down, and monitoring that in a very easy way. So I think that's super, super good feedback. Really, really appreciate that. Hannah, how do you think, what's the beneficial feature? What could you see would be, even more beneficial that we could do?
Sure. Well, I mean, just in general, and I'm stating the obvious, the fact that we can use menstrual blood to test A1C is incredible. I don't have to get poked with the needle, which is so nice and so convenient.
I don't think it's obvious, actually. I think this is still so new. A lot of women don't even know that they have this opportunity, right? It's like menstrual blood is still a stigma, it's still a taboo. We don't really talk about it, but at the same time, it is absolutely useful. It has so much clinical value, but I think there's still totally like a lack of awareness. So definitely not obvious. I'm happy that you brought it up.
No, I 100% agree with you. I think it's very taboo, which I don't know why, because women have been bleeding for a long, long, long time. But anyway, my only thing with Qvin. And I love the app too. I will say Zara made a really great point just with the tracking. I actually loved her idea on also lifestyle, like what that looks like. Like, hey, did you run a marathon this month? Or no, I didn't, which is amazing. But you know what I mean? Things that can be helpful with like activity, or what did you eat? Or maybe, you know, maybe it was your birthday and you had cake, or whatever it might be. Just to add those things and just to see how the A1C can go up, go down, or stay steady. As well as I did have one thing, the mail, but it's also too, it is the holidays, and I know we can't really control the mail so much, but that was my only critique. I love the app. I think it's wonderful and very user-friendly.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Hannah. Artie.
Yeah, so you know, for me personally, I find the Q-pad super convenient. Haven't really had any issues with using it or getting results or anything, but I do think that, you know, some women might have challenges if they have an inconsistent flow, or if they have a light versus heavy flow. I mean, I'm lucky, I guess, that I have a heavy flow, and so I don't really have to worry about it. But
The first time a woman has said that. So yes, I in this case absolutely agree.
Yeah, but you know, I think it like one benefit I think could be is if it could be offered in for women with different types of flow. You know, just so if you do have a heavy flow, you might not have to change it as much, or if you have a lighter flow, you know, like it might just be easier to use because just in conversation, you know, I've been telling some of my many family members with diabetes about it, and you know, some of them have been concerned, you know, maybe they wouldn't be able to bleed in the specific location just based on having a light flow. And so that might make using the Q-pad a little bit more challenging. So I think, you know, I love the technology. I love the flexibility. Like for me personally, I haven't had any problems or issues, but I think, you know, just making it easy for women with all different types of flow to use in terms of their actual period itself could be some feedback to incorporate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do think, you know, as we think about next steps, you know, having different pads, you know, that cater to
Yeah.
different flows certainly makes sense because everybody's flow is different, right?
Yeah.
Even when we
Yes.
say, you know, use it on the day of your heaviest flow, actually we're seeing that for majority of women, they use it on the second day, but there are women who actually the fourth day is where they bleed a little bit more. And so they use it on the fourth day. So I think that's a really, really good point. Really appreciate the feedback. We do include an extra Q-pad in every kit, actually for that very reason that, you know, in the event that the flow isn't, you know, where, you know, because you can't control these things.
Yeah.
And you have a backup to hopefully, you know, get the sample collected.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
definitely it's a really good feedback. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Artie. And Krista, ending with you on the same question here.
No, I've been an app developer before, so a ton of cool things I could offer you. You know, with especially content. I like to go into an app and maybe it'd be so cool to see our stories in there to inspire people.
Yes.
Keep using the Q-pad and like have like little testimonials and things like that. I have so many ideas, you know.
I have no doubt about that. That's fantastic.
You know, gamifying the app, you know, giving us like points or something for doing an action in the app. You know, there's all kinds of things I'm sure you've thought of already. But I will have to say that this is the biggest feedback that I do have is that, you know, having PCOS, my first few days of my period are bad. I mean, there's a lot of blood. I love the Q-pad, but it's sometimes not big enough for load that I have to make. So I have to wear a period diaper the first 2 days of my period. And it'd be really cool if the actual strip was something you could peel and put it in other pads. Also, especially the diaper. I mean, that's the one for me. Because sometimes I have to wear it more than the 2 days. Sometimes it's the whole week.
Yeah.
So, I've actually put the Q-pad in my diaper before.
Really? Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that makes sense. And I think you're right that currently it's a medium flow that it caters to, but of course, you know, it's a very natural next step to say, look, there is heavy and light, and how do
Yeah.
we make sure that we capture everyone? So very,
It,
very good feedback.
yeah. So sometimes I'd have to use it at when I was at a lighter flow, and you know, I like to use it on I think it's the second or third day.
Yeah.
So being able to maybe have a bigger pad, or maybe even have the cool period diaper would be cool. So that's
Absolutely.
that,
I'm so glad that I asked this question. This is really, really, really good feedback. I cannot thank you enough, all of you, for sharing you guys' stories, how this, you know, this condition is affecting you guys' lives, how you're managing it. So impressed with kind of how on top of things you are. You know, it's not every woman who is able to kind of be so on top of it and stay so engaged. And I hope that innovations that will, you know, remove some of the barriers that makes it especially hard will help bring more women to this opportunity of knowing what's going on and hopefully manage better, right? So with all that said, thank you so much. I know we have a Q&A session now, so I'll hand it back to you, Shelby, to see if there's any questions we can be helpful answering here as we wrap up.
Great. Thank you, guys. That was a wonderful discussion. We really appreciate you sharing your stories. And Artie, I just want to say, if we could get our families together, we could have one big old diabetes party. Let me tell you, your family sounds a lot like mine.
Oh man.
Anyway, so yeah, we've got several questions. Let's see, let's start with this one. I did this for the first time last month. It was so easy to do. I've already received my results. It was 6.97. What is the difference between the lab and this? And what else can we know about our health with this pad?
That's a great question. So I guess I'll answer that one. So you know, in terms of what the difference is, the QPAD has gone through a very long journey of validation studies. We've tested the way we sort of do the testing is we ask women to use a QPAD, and then we do a venous blood draw very close to the use, and then we look at the difference. And so as part of going through an FDA clearance, you know, the correlation we've looked at for many women, we've looked at the effect on shipping it from, I mean, various places in the US, where the temperature varies quite a bit. And I would say it's been through a rigorous process. It was something that was important for us. And I think actually I've been surprised at how many health solutions, especially that you can order online, that actually haven't been through an FDA clearance process. So all that to say, you know, it was important for us to go through that to make sure that the consistency, the accuracy is where it needs to be. And the FDA actually had very specific criteria for when they do approve and clear medical devices such as the QPAD. And so we follow the national standard for that. It's actually for every clinical lab, that's the same. So there's no difference between the QPAD and the venous blood draw in terms of the criteria that you have to meet to be able to you know, have patients use it. And so in that way, you know, it is really, really very accurate. And the number is 6%. That's the sort of nationwide standard that you have to be within. In terms of what other things you can test, we've validated a number of other tests, and sort of in testing, you know, thousands of women and interviewing a lot of women, and we've asked women what is most relevant for you to monitor. And you know, some of the things that often come up is we talked a little bit about thyroid hormones. We've heard a lot about fertility hormones, you know, partly for women who are interested in knowing more about the fertility, but also women who may be approaching perimenopause and wanting to know what's going on in my body. Hey, why am I feeling these symptoms? Inflammation biomarkers. Another thing that we've published on and we're really excited about is actually something like cervical cancer screening that, you know, today unfortunately still kills hundreds of thousands of women, but is a cancer type that is entirely preventable. And of course, you know, there are barriers to getting screening, accessibility, affordability, and just in general, like having to go in, get undressed, get on the table, insert a speculum and collect those cells is not something that women are super excited about. It's frankly an ancient way of doing it, in my opinion. And we do have data to support that the QPAD can actually detect cervical cancer very accurately compared to clinician collected, and it actually picks up a few more cases. So that's something that we're working really hard to make available for patients in the US and also abroad, of course, because, you know, having our periods is a global phenomenon. All women experience this. It's not based on nationality or ethnicity. This is something we all have in common. So this solution is a global solution as well. So yeah, something we're working on, and we hope to be able to offer very soon.
Okay, great. The next one is more of a comment. I love this panel. I love all the points they made that support self-management of diabetes. All these women need to be part of the Diabetes Sisters community. So,
Absolutely.
okay, what advice would you give someone hesitant about trying the Q-pad for the first time?
I'll almost let the panelists answer this one. Maybe we'll go in the opposite order. First time, if you wanna jump in.
Don't hesitate.
Just don't.
I don't know. I would never hesitate trying to figure out what was going on with my A1C. Like I said, it's so important to me. I have life-threatening things happening around me, so I have to know. But I would just say, just take the dive, do it. And then also, if you want to get your intravenous test done, you could do that and compare it, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable doing it again.
That's awesome. Anybody else want to jump in? Already, Krista, Hannah?
Yeah, my
Yeah.
advice would be just to think about really, what do you have to lose? Like, you try it. If it works for you, great. You have another tool at your disposal to manage your health. And if it doesn't, you can go back to what you were doing before. But yeah,
Yeah, I think
never
that's
hurts to try something new.
Yeah, and I actually think, before we obtain FDA clearance, you have to get what we call an ethical review approval by the ethical review board. And one of the things that was quite easy actually to get is because there is no invasiveness here, so I kind of resonate with that what do you have to lose? There is no needle, you're taking this drug and we don't know what's gonna, like, it's you're having a period. Yeah, I love that. Hannah, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and it's been said, but don't hesitate about it. And if you're nervous about it, I know that Qvin has a bunch of videos on how to do it, and they've got examples, and there's things that you can research and look at. And if it's something that you are unsure of at first, I say give it a go. And then if you want to, go to the lab, go to your doctor, and compare and contrast and see what it does. I feel like I've been so relieved by it because I've had type 1 diabetes for 20 years. So it's like, it's so cool to me that there's this innovative technology that's come about, that honestly made me be like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little like, oh, like hesitant in a way, just because I've been doing this for so long, but just give it a go. I think it's so great. It's so innovative and simple, easy.
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
the two things I was hesitant about when I first, ordered the Q-pad was, is it going to be complicated to use, and is it going to be accurate? And I think we've heard, from Krista already, that the lab tests mimic exactly the same results as you get on the Q-pad. And it's, in terms of complexity of use, it's literally like using a menstrual pad. So it's not hard to use. So don't be worried about that.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. I'm nervous about whether my flow will be enough for the Q-pad. Can you tell me what happens if I buy a kit and can't really use it?
So, we have on the Q-pad, there is a little oval printed actually that is a visual kind of, we sort of say, once you've covered the oval, then you've collected enough. And I would say, even if you don't cover the oval, we actually ask women to send it in, because most of the time the lab is able to give you back a result. So despite, let's say the oval wasn't covered, definitely still send it in, because it's very likely that we will be able to return a result regardless. And if not, then, there's a backup Q-pad as well that you can use. We really often see that, most women are able to get a result back. And in the event that, let's say that wasn't the case, then we have the nicest customer service people. And I think in case by case, they'll help out in figuring out how we can then get you a new kit, how we can help you kind of get the results that we need. So I would say definitely don't not send it in, because again, we really most of the time are able to get a result back to you.
Okay, well, I think that's all we have time for today, unfortunately. If we didn't get to your question, feel free to reach out via the contact information provided on our website, and we'll do our best to follow up. Before we sign off, I'd like to share a few updates from Diabetes Sisters. This holiday season, we're raising funds to support women's health initiatives. Anyone who donates $25 or more through the end of December will receive a free Diabetes Sisters community cookbook featuring delicious recipes from some of our members, our hosts, and our webinar speakers. Your contributions make a real difference, and we'd be so grateful if you'd share this campaign with your friends and family. Also, registration information for our 2025 peer support meetups is now available on our website. These gatherings are an incredible way to connect with other women living with diabetes, whether you're looking to celebrate your victories or share your challenges. We hope to see you at a meetup in 2025. Thank you once again to Dr. Nasseri and our wonderful panelists for being here today. And thanks to all of you who took time out of your busy schedules to join us. We look forward to seeing you again at our future webinars and meetups. We hope you have a happy and healthy holiday season. Thanks, everybody.